Welcome to 10 reasons to lift weights with your feet. I am going to show you one of the 10 measurable standards that help me go from the slowest guy on every team to now having, honestly, more speed than I imagined would even be possible for me. So, I have 10 facts here, and the standard that I'm talking about, which I've hit, so now I'm going more than 10%, but 10% for 20 reps, getting thigh at least to parallel without the back knee bending, okay? That's the standard I'm talking about. So I'm now pushing myself for more than that. All right, reason number one is that your hip flexors are the biggest size difference between regular humans and elite sprinters. There's a lot of differences, okay? Glutes, hamstrings. But when Japanese researchers looked at the actual muscular weight difference, hip flexors is the biggest difference between a regular person and an elite sprinter. Now, you could easily say that the glutes push so hard when you run that the glutes cause you to build hip flexors from running. And that could totally be true, but I would argue that it could go either way, and that actually also stronger hip flexors. You ever run with such good form you nearly fall on your face? Okay, I've trained people who they can't actually hold the angle that they should hold to get started because their hip flexors are too weak, so they have to lean back. So if you look at your glute extending, if your hip flexor has to stop there, your glute's only going to develop so far. So, again, this is one of 10 standards. We also have standards for the glutes. But that brings us right to the number 2 reason, which is that most of us through squats and deadlifts have been training our hip extension for years, if not decades, never training hip flexion with the same drive and measurable standard. So most of us have a ton of speed potential just waiting for us by getting our hip flexors to match our hip extensors, right? The genetic freak guys, they have both. They were made by God. So if we're trying to follow clues and get the same speed as the genetic freak, well, if your buddy's been running faster than you for the last 10 years and now you match his hip extension strength, will you run as fast as him? Or he has 10 years of the hip flexors having to catch up with that speed. So this could be critical to catching up, and I've never found a case yet where someone didn't have speed waiting for them by getting the hip flexors stronger. The hip flexors only can help you get as fast as your glute is strong, right? So it doesn't mean there's just endless speed potential from hip flexor, but basically to the degree that your hip extension is strong, your hip flexors probably have gains waiting for you. Number 3, a bonus. With so many athletes I've trained now, once you start training and lifting weight with your feet, your glutes start getting sore from the training you're doing, from the speed work. So this kind of goes to that chicken and the egg thing, but it seems that on any side of your body, on any side of a joint, you can limit your growth by being weak on the other side, right? A lot of bodybuilders have sworn that training their tibialis plateau busted their calf growth, right? So this is, okay, the calf extends, the ankle, tibialis flexes it. Okay, well the glute extends the hip, and the hip flexor flexes it. So that makes sense. I trained a guy who went to an Olympic bobsled combine. Strongest hip extension I've ever seen. Voted the most powerful rookie for Team USA bobsled, but guess what? By the 3rd day, he couldn't even do it. Why? Because his hip flexors were so sore because he got that sled going so fast, he couldn't keep up with the sled, and that ultimately prevented him from making the Olympics. All right, but it's not his fault, right? I'm not blaming the guy. He didn't have 10 years of hip extension training, but he had been deadlifting for 10 years, right? If he had been doing this for 10 years, my God, Olympic gold medalist for sure. And he didn't come from a track background. Most bobsled guys come from a track background. So they have the hip extension training in the weight room, and they have the hip flexors from track, and they're basically too big and slow to actually, make the Olympics in sprinting. Though I would argue, actually, if they train this, they probably would be. All right. Perfect last example of number 3 is that this is strength. So I remember working with a football player, and we're out on the track. We're running on lasers. and I'm dusting him at top end speed. And he's pissed, and he tells me, how are you running faster than me? I'm stronger than you. And I say, you're not stronger than me. You think you're stronger than me because you're stronger in a couple exercises, squat and deadlift, which even those I'm actually surprisingly strong in as a result of ATG training. So I just took one of my 10 measurables, went to a back extension machine, put my body weight on the bar. He weighed more than me. Deadlifted it like it was nothing. Yum, yum, yum. Guess what? He couldn't even pick that shit up. He didn't. I'm not even talking about hip flexors here. I'm talking about hip extension, the way you actually use it in sprinting. Okay? I was stronger than, physically my body was stronger than his at top end speed. So you have two types, right? A Romanian deadlift would relate more, this would relate more to the start of a sprint. And then how much you could deadlift on a back extension machine and hold up to that top would relate more to your top end speed. So my point is just that, you know, if we look at 1, 2, and 3 that we've covered so far, right, we know they're a big difference. They're not the only thing in a sprinter, right? We know they're the biggest difference. And most of us have been training our hip extension forever and have not had measurable load on the hip flexors. So we get this bonus that I think getting the hip flexor stronger than when you actually run, play sports, just naturally you use your glutes in extension more, which is also one of the, so this is two, you know, hip flexion and glute and extension are 2 of the 10 things I believe in training with measurable standard. Number 4, price, baby. I used to drive to Tampa to use a $5,000 hip flexor machine. That didn't work as well, I found later, as about a $1,500, which is what I was finding it cost me to get good cable machines for my gym. If you remember the old ATG, we'd lay on our back and we would do this with cables. Only to now find out that strapping up with 10 to 60 bucks, because you can take a $10 floss band. I'll put this in the description of the video so you can see a form tutorial showing you how to wrap a floss band. Or this thing's like 60 bucks. For 10 to 60 bucks, that brings me to point number 5. Reason number 5. Free weights work better than machines. It doesn't mean machines work, but this has been tested to death. Machines work, free weights work better. Theoretically, sure, someone could win an Olympic gold medal in Olympic weightlifting, or break a powerlifting world record, or win a strongman competition without ever touching a free weight, but it's never happened, okay? Because scientifically, machine doesn't work as well as free weight. Not to mention the problem with the cable, which is closer to free weight. Cable machines are different based on the pulley. Some are tougher than others based on the actual internals. But you know what? Unless you're on a different planet, 20 pounds is freaking 20 pounds, okay? So that's what's dope about this, is that free weights work better. And this is my philosophy, which it can take a long time to actually believe this. The closer we get to the truth, the simpler things get. Meaning the more expensive your gym costs, the less results you're gonna get. I'm not saying this as something theoretical, I'm saying factually. I've run my whole life by this concept. It's completely changed my life over the last few years, is by actually going with the concept. What if the closer I get to the truth, the simpler it gets? On that note, you want a really good formula for marriage and not winding up in divorce? Just don't get a divorce. What happens if you don't get a divorce? You have to keep actually trying to make it work. It gets way better than you ever imagined it could get when you want a divorce. I know that's too simple, right? I know, it's too simple. Oftentimes the truth is too simple that we can't handle. All right, number 6. You have more long-term potential in your hip flexors than you have in your six-pack. I learned this from Charles Poliquin. So if you haven't argued with me, don't argue with me. I don't make any of this shit up. I try to learn from the best mentors in the world. Charles Poliquin, rest in peace, trained 286 Olympic medalists, most in history. He was the first one who told me that what they're teaching in college is 20, 30 years behind what he's doing. This, it's gonna take 20, 30 years to have a test of, get your hip flexor this much stronger, your speed goes this much more in relation. So you could just test athletes and you could say, how much can you deadlift off the floor? How much can you deadlift in a back extension? Test their top end speed on lasers. Hand timing is a joke. Go ahead and time 10 in a row. See how far off you are from 1 second. Try to land it on a second, and you see that you can't detect differences. You can detect the difference between a 10-year-old girl and Usain Bolt, but you wouldn't be able to detect any improvement in Usain Bolt. It's getting off track here. Point is, there's your study. If you're in college right now, get your whatever college athletes, test How much can you pick up off the floor? I don't even care about form, because form ruins studies. They don't check form, so whatever. How much can you pick up off the floor? All right, now in a back extension, how much can you pick up and get up? All right, now how much can you lift up here without the back knee bending? Now what's your top end speed? It wouldn't reveal absolutes, because these are only a couple factors, but I'm just saying it's going to be 20, 30 years before we know the difference or the correlation between hip flexor strength and speed. So again, I learned this from Charles Poliquin. Take it up with the greats. I'm not one of the greats yet. I'm trying to get there. And this data has made my athletes millions of dollars. So it's really, there's no point in debating someone like me who's actually creating, so I'm making pro athletes millions of dollars with this, making college scholarships, pro contracts, extending careers, literally making guys run faster, couldn't run a speed, are fully developed, out of a league, and now they're running faster and making millions. 7, don't worry though. Progress actually can be really fast. You know why? Because what I've been doing the whole time, you can take these babies to failure, okay? Do you know how much gains you can make on a muscle? When you can, go ahead and add up. Go ahead and scroll back through this video. Actually, the worst part of this video is knowing that I'm gonna have to scroll back and see how many reps I did and do it with the other one. Because 7 and 8 is being able to go to failure, and what else have I been doing this whole time? Cluster train. I'm able to take a heavy amount of weight. Trust me, 20 pounds for a 180-pound person. Try it before you knock it. See if you can do 20 in a row with about 10% of your weight, then start going up without bending that back leg, right? So cluster training is amazing and very proven, and so is pushing a muscle. So the point is that this safely, imagine on a deadlift, right? Imagine saying, okay, once you hit failure, do 30 more reps. You'd have to have spotters, you'd risk a serious back injury, honestly. So with this, look how safe this is. So what's dope is that an extensor, right? Calf muscle, quad, glutes, right? Those are thought of as the big ones, triple extension. What about triple flexion? To a whole new world. I'm living proof, a whole new world of athleticism waits those who address their flexors, tibialis, Nordics, and hip flexors. And all 3 of those, you can safely push to failure. Do cluster, you can just push it so hard. Number 9. Number 9 and 10 are knee pain and shin splints. And number 9 and 10, again, I did not make up. Number 9 and 10 come from Charles Poliquin, who I mentioned regarding shin splints, and from a doctor, son of a gun. I should have written down his name. If I think of it, the guy's like 50, and he's still running like a gazelle, and he could do a flat Nordic. He's the oldest. If there was some kind of Guinness World Record, he's like the oldest dude to do a flat Nordic ever. If I remember his name, I'll put it in the description. Dr. Ned, Stephen Ned in Clearwater, Florida. I remember taking an athlete to him and him saying, the knee pain is caused by weak hip flexor. Sure enough, the guy had the weakest hip flexors in the gym. No offense to him, one of my best friends in the world. Okay, but are you a clopper or a glider when you run, right? So of course, if you have no VMO and these different things, like if you have no protection for your knee, don't expect to, not have knee pain, right? Knee pain is a measurable mathematical fact. Knee pain doesn't have to exist. Shin splints don't have to exist. Myself and thousands of others are now living proof that these are measurable equations. Drop me off a skyscraper, I'm dead, right? Play basketball, I can easily get anyone to knee shins that are physically impossible to hurt from playing basketball. But the hip flexor is part of that equation. Because imagine with no hip flexors, how would you have to run if you had no hip flexors? Clopping. So I used to be a clopper. I used to run like a Clydesdale. If you saw the opening clip of this video, which Uncle Drew thankfully got from my high school coach, I was too embarrassed to ask the guy for my film, to be quite honest with you. He made me, when we ran the 40 as a team, I ran a 6-second 40-yard dash at age 16. He made me take my shoes off to prove I didn't have lead weights in them, right? So, but guess what though? I was faster than anybody on the team on a speed ladder. I would destroy you with my 6-second 40. I would destroy most NFL players on how much I could move 1 inch until you realize that, holy shit, sports isn't played over 1 inch. Charles Poliquin told me, yeah, I'll train speed ladder once speed ladder is an Olympic sport. It's true. Save the time for mastering. Players today have no idea what Kobe and Jordan were actually doing with their feet. Wait till I do some more breakdowns for you. Most players literally have no clue. They think they're skilled at basketball because they can shoot and dribble, but they don't realize they actually can't even hold the positions in the footwork that their heroes do. They're actually not that good at basketball. They don't have footwork, but they'll kill you in a speed ladder. Speed ladder is one of the things I think is actually ruining athletes' potentials. There's nothing wrong with the speed ladder. There's just not enough right about it. You'd be so much better off mastering the actual movement of your sport, getting hip flexors. You know how many kids I've seen destroy a speed ladder, can't do a flat Nordic? Are you kidding me? Even though all the greatest speed success stories in history spent anywhere from 6 to 20 years once a week doing the Nordic. All right, the point is, Dr. Stephen Ned is the one who educated me on the importance of hip flexor for reducing knee pain from not being a clopper. And it was Charles Poliquin who educated me on it, on being able to run gliding across the ground, which Poliquin believed both hip flexor and hip extension in the top end, not your deadlift, your back extension deadlift, related to not getting shin splints, right? These are secondary. With the tibialis and the soleus, we can mathematically make shin splints impossible, but it's obvious now learning from the doc plus Poliquin. So look, oh shit, I had a conclusion on there. All right, I remember my conclusion. Well, I wrote this out. My conclusion was no excuses ever for anything. Just like the closer you get to the truth, the simpler it gets. This is a choice that it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It doesn't matter if what I say about the closer we get to the truth, the simpler it gets. It doesn't matter when I say no excuses ever for anything. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's a philosophy, a way of going through life. I just didn't give myself an excuse for not being fast. So I did struggle with my speed year after year after year, but I followed the clues and eventually figured it out. Now I have 10 measurable standards. I can make people run faster. You hire someone to come paint your wall with the same precision, I can make someone run faster. And this is one of those 10. And one of the more important ones, this one plus Nordic, are, in my opinion, this one, Nordic, and the extension, I think, are the three most important, specifically for speed. Fourth would actually be like your reverse step up, some specific forms of that, because I learned from Paul, when you use that VMO really in the top end there, those four would be bigger ones. But the point is that just don't ever have an excuse for anything, and eventually you'll have no reason to make an excuse, because you'll actually achieve the things that you have an excuse for right now. But when you make an excuse, you're lying. You're lying to me. You're lying to anyone you're making an excuse to. You know why? Because we're incredibly powerful. We're so powerful, and it hurts us inside when we make an excuse. We can feel it. You know why? We just lied to the universe. God, whatever you believe, and I believe in both God and the universe, and I believe that I'm lying when I make an excuse, because I do know we're that powerful. So we're so powerful that if you make an excuse, you are lying, okay? Because you are powerful enough to make that go right. So that's my only point I wanted to leave you with. You can figure out how to get a monkey foot. You can figure out how to wrap it up with floss, put it in the description. Any of these things, nothing's that expensive. Even a Nordic bench or something like that, which we have dozens of ways since, just no excuses for anything. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm leaving you with that. It's not enough to have the data and make an excuse. You have the data now, and now you know that you are lying to me if you have any excuse why you can't do these things. And look, what am I demoing was points 7 and 8, that you see this? You can't do this safely with like a squat and deadlift. You can do it. It takes partners, it takes machinery. I can push this muscle so hard. I can press, keep going. And now I have no excuses to do the other side. It's gonna be absolutely horrible. I don't even wanna think about how many reps I did, and I'm gonna have to do it. And guess what? I have no excuses why I'm not gonna be even fast. I don't have any excuses. Why shouldn't I be the fastest person in the world? Or at least I play basketball, right? So I can make that. I'm gonna be the fastest basketball player in the world. Doesn't matter if I get there or not. What matters, I don't have any excuses for getting there, so I'm gonna damn sure get closer to getting there. All right, anyone who's watched this far, got love for you, this side, peace.